Good afternoon. I'm Jean. I'm your FM wine guide, and I'm excited to talk to you about the perfect wine to drink this summer. Actually, there's many of them. So here's one that I see being chosen this particular summer. More than any other, I see more people drinking New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc. Sauvignon Blanc grows great in this southernmost wine growing region on the planet. It's very cool there. They have fantastic ocean breezes that keep the grapes really crisp and full of fresh aromatics and acidity. New Zealand Sauv Blancs are known for kind of a grapefruity, aromatic, and some grassy notes, and a little bit of this flint minerality. It makes them just really refreshing, thirst-quenching, perfect summery wines to drink on the deck or to pair with food. And there are a lot of options out there. So I chose actually 4 today to unpack and go through and kind of tell you a little bit about the tasting notes and the differences. However, these 4 wines actually happen to come all from the same winery called Barker's Marque from Marlborough, New Zealand. The reason this particular winery decided to make 4 different bottlings of their Sauv Blanc is because they're fantastic, but also because they had really unique differences in the microclimates and the terroir on the vineyards they owned. And there are a lot of nuances to this part of the island. There is an underground river that flows near where their vineyards are that affects the soil type and the depth. There's also sea breezes blowing right off the ocean. The vineyards are located right next to the sea, so that affects the grapes a lot. But the biggest factor in the differences between the 4 bottles actually has to do with how deep the layer of clay in the soil type is underneath the gravel, which I find pretty interesting. I don't know if you're interested or not, but that is actually what makes the biggest difference in the flavors of these grapes, is the depth of that water-retaining clay layer. So let's talk about the differences between these 4, because they really are distinctly unique, even though they are all New Zealand Sauvignon Blancs. And I thought sometimes a fun way to differentiate things and create parallels to help you understand is to give each wine a character or a story. And since there are 4 of these, I thought I'd compare each of these wines to one of the Beatles. So stay tuned if you're a Beatles fan. You can figure out which of these wines you'll like best based on your favorite Beatle. So let's first start with the Loop Sauvignon Blanc. For me, it's more playful. It's got kind of an orangey citrus note to it, a little more bright tropical fruit. And so for me, the Loop is definitely Ringo Starr. It's just a little more goofy, fun, in your face, and playful. And the acidity to it kind of gives you sort of this feeling of a rhythm on your tongue, just the way that prickly acid hits you from the tip of the tongue to the back of the throat. So the Loop is Ringo Starr. Then we're going to go to Ranga Ranga. Ranga Ranga is the one that's actually affected the most by the ocean breezes. So it's got kind of this salty mineral note to it. To me, this one is almost the most classic, the most serious, kind of what you expect from a New Zealand Sauv Blanc. It does have a little bit of that herbal note to it. So for me, this one is George Harrison, because it's just a little more serious, a little more classic, a little more in-depth to the musicality of that one. So Ranga Ranga for me is George. Then Arona, I'm going to compare to Paul McCartney. First, because he's known as the babyface Beatle, and while some New Zealand Sauv Blancs can be a little more angular in their acidity and the way they attack the mouth, Arona is a little more smooth and creamy, so just like babyface Paul. But also, this has some really lovely integrated layers of tropical fruit. It's probably the prettiest of the 4, and maybe you can think of that as a beautiful melody of fruits sort of interplaying and weaving its way into your mind and into your mouth. So Arona is Paul for me. And then finally, the one I'm actually going to taste is called 3 Brooms Sauvignon Blanc, and this is definitely the John Lennon of the bunch. It is the most complex, the most interesting. It's the one you kind of got to take a little more time with to say, ooh, what are all these layers, and what is this wine trying to speak to me? So 3 Brooms Sauv Blanc. Oh, there's definitely that grapefruit note, but a little bit of hay and orange. This one has a little more contact with the lees, so there's that sort of yeasty smell to it. I even get a little apple there. Oh, yeah, and just sunshiny, bright, and beautiful, and complex, and mysterious, and artistic as well. So enjoy one or all of these New Zealand Sauv Blancs from Barker's Marque this summer.